Welcome, friends. My name is Chair of Table. You've probably heard about President Theodore Roosevelt and his imperialistic pursuits, as well as his diplomatic accolades. But TR was not just the gung-ho politician you may think he was. Today, X marks the spot to where we're diving into TR's progressive policies and unearthing his treasure trove of reforms. So let's dig in. Teddy Roosevelt was a man ahead of his time, which was shown through his actions and policies as president. By introducing his square deal plan to the nation and making it his administration's motto, he showed he was standing up and making a change for the people who had little opportunity to make one for themselves. He would fight to stop corporations and trusts from controlling the markets and exploiting the dependency of their employees. Coal miners had it especially tough. They did extremely grueling and dangerous work for long hours with minimal pay. So when they had finally had enough, they went on strike. But the miners are going to need a man with influence to back them up. Teddy Roosevelt was that man. The year is 1902. With winter approaching, millions of American lives depended on coal heating for survival. Disaster struck when 140,000 Pennsylvania coal miners dropped their pickaxes and hard hats and walked right out of the mines. These workers were furious with their working conditions. They demanded higher wages and a shorter workday. They refused to return to the mines until their demands were met. We talked with one of these miners to get the real scoop. Excuse me, Mr. Angry Miner, sir?
Yes?
What exactly are you doing here?
I'm going on strike.
And what are you striking about? Do you have a problem with the management or something?
They are filthy pigs. I spit on them. Too.
Oh my, what makes you say that?
I work under horrible conditions. There are terrible accidents every day from cave-ins. Us miners work 10 hours and often die to keep this country heated and fueled. But for what? To be paid just enough to be able to keep our families fed? Sometimes I do not eat so my youngest daughter, Olga, may have extra rations so she may grow up strong like bull. We demand higher pay and tolerable work hours and do not be treated like worthless slave wages.
My, how interesting this is. Please explain to our viewers exactly what your demands are.
Well, nosy man with many questions, we will agree to go back to work if we are given a 20% pay increase, an 8-hour workday, and to have our union recognized and respected.
Oh, so you have a union now. Care to enlighten us about that?
Certainly. I am part of the United Mine Workers of America, or UMWA, and we strive to improve working conditions and payments for miners everywhere.
Gee, fascinating stuff. Oh, it looks like we're getting a live update. It appears as though Roosevelt has ended the strike. You'll be getting a 9-hour workday and a 10% pay increase. Also, he won't recognize your little union, so take it or leave it.
It is better than motherland, Nostrovia!
Teddy Roosevelt swooped in just as tension was boiling over between the leader of the coal miners' union, John Mitchell, and George Baer, the owner of the coal mines. He organized a commission to settle the strike and come to a compromise that both parties could agree upon. By doing so, Roosevelt successfully avoided a devastating winter without heat. TR not only protected the laborers from corporations, but also the consumer. He prevented business tycoons like J.P. Morgan and James J. Hill from monopolizing the railroad industry by combining the Great Northern and Northern Pacific railroads.
Hello, Mr. Morgan. How are you on this fine evening?
All right.
Great. I love to meet an enthusiastic business typhoon.
Yahtzee!
So what's on your mind, sport?
That damn cowboy, Teddy Roosevelt. He seems to think the government has a right to tell me how to do business.
Is that so? Do tell.
Well, my good friend Mr. James G. Hill and I started a railroad company named the Northern Securities Company. We were making quite a mess of money, monopolizing the industry and all that, when that rough-riding jackass kicked down our door and dissolves our company.
I bet that made you pretty mad.
You're damn right it did. There's a reason they call it a free market, you know.
But isn't it true that your company had grown so large that it became virtually impossible for anyone else to even gain a foothold in the railroad industry?
Irrelevant.
I don't see how that's at all...
Irrelevant?
I see. Well, Mr. Morgan, how did you feel when Teddy Roosevelt told you that your future business endeavors would be safe from the big stick of the federal government?
Skeptical. And I was right to feel that way, because 4 years later, he handpicked their predecessor, Mr. William Fatboy Taft, launched a suit against U.S. Steel.
That sure ruffled your feathers, huh?
This interview is over!
Theodore Roosevelt did a large amount of work to help industry, and to give power to the people. He also worked to preserve the environment. Inspiration for preserving the environment came from trips out to the American West where he could escape the hustle and bustle of his political life and relax. Mr. Roosevelt was ahead of his time when it came to conservation of nature.
Welcome, Mr. Roosevelt.
Good afternoon, Sheriff.
Now, we're here today to talk about conservation of our American environment. Most people take our resources for granted, but you actually think we're going to run out someday. Please elaborate on that.
Well, Sheriff, take the resource lumber, for example. It's absolutely necessary to gather that resource, but we're gathering it far too quickly. It will run out sooner or later. The conservation of natural resources is the fundamental problem. Unless we solve that problem, it will avail us little to solve all others.
Well said. How much land do you think is necessary to preserve?
Well, I have set aside 230 million acres. It's 1/5 of our country.
Wow. Do you intend to preserve any more?
Well, right now my focus has shifted more towards animals, birds specifically. Our country has been slaughtering birds at an incredibly high rate. But not only for food, also for, like, ladies' hats and other frivolous things.
That's wonderful. Do you have any other animals in mind?
Well, Sheriff, it's funny you ask. You know, I've been called the American lion, but quite frankly, I'm far more interested in the American tiger. They're just so elegant. Mila, treat! Mila! Oh, good girl. Good girl. Mila.
Have you ever heard the wolf cry to the blue corn moon, or ask the grinning bobcat why he grinned? Can you sing with all the voices of the mountain? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind? Can you paint with all the colors of the wind?